Hail to the barbarian horde, and happy Howard Day. It has been a hot minute since Hour of the Dragon's been analyzed, so here it is. Last time, what was examined, and as Howard Days are coming up on June 13th and 14th, this means that we have to do our utmost to honor the illustrious author of Hour of the Dragon. The two hosts confronted each other across a wide, shallow valley with rugged cliffs and a shallow stream winding through masses of reeds and willows down the middle of the vale. The camp followers of both hosts came down to the stream for water and shouted insults and hurled stones across at one another. The last glints of the sun shone on the golden banner of Nemedia, with the scarlet dragon unfurled in the breeze above the pavilion of King Tarascus, on an eminence near the eastern cliff, but the shadow of the western cliff fell like a vast purple pall across the tents and the army of Aquilonia, and upon the black banner with its golden lion that floated above King Conan's pavilion. Conan has advanced east to meet the threat from the east in the hopes of forestalling a complete invasion of his kingdom of Aquilonia. This is the most natural thing to do as a good and proper king. We also get here two major world-building details. One is that Nemedia has her own banner, one of gold with a scarlet dragon on it. The color gold is a color of wealth and is one that is often associated with royalty. As to the symbol of the dragon, it is one that has long since proven a popular royal symbol, as it is a powerful one. One that cannot be denied also instills fear in those who are against it, as can be seen throughout medieval history. That said, it is not the Nemedian dragon that should attract our attention, but that of the Aquilonian lion. Bear in mind that the symbol was not the one chosen by the Aquilonian people, but by Conan himself. Chosen back when he was a pirate, he took the emblem for himself on account of his pirate name of Amra, which means lion. It is an emblem that has served him well, and that has proven a popular symbol throughout history. One can see here though that Howard, who had favored the tiger for cull, has moved to a new feline for his pet character. It is a choice that is a good one, as for some reason, lions have always been seen as a better royal animal than tigers. I quite like tigers myself. Of course, Conan's emblem is a black one with a golden lion on it. The black is a nice nod to his pirate days. The weight of the crown. It was in the darkness before dawn that King Conan stirred on his couch, which was no more than a pile of silks and furs thrown on a dais, and awakened. He started up, crying out sharply and clutching at his sword. Pallantides, his commander, rushing in at the cry, saw his king sitting upright, his hand on his hilt, and perspiration dripping from his strangely pale face. I love this scene, not gonna lie. It is one of the best out there. It is one that really is quite striking as we're introduced to Conan for the first time in this book. Now we've seen how his enemies perceive him, but we've not yet seen him as he truly is. It happened that Conan has been attacked in the middle of the night. He has had because of this one of the worst nightmares of his entire life. It is truly terrifying nightmare that would likely leave a great many people terrified and unable to get up or cease shaking. Yet here is Conan, ready to recount it, despite being shaken. What is also interesting is that the nightmare, which he has been assailed by, has elements that were later to inspire 2001: A Space Odyssey. Squint and you'll see it. It's quite interesting. "Your Majesty," exclaimed Pallantides, "is aught amiss?" "What of the camp?" demanded Conan. "Are the guards out?" 500 horsemen patrol the stream, Your Majesty," answered the general. "The Nemedians have not offered to move against us in the night. They wait for dawn, even as we." "By Crum," muttered Conan, "I awoke with a feeling that doom was creeping on me in the night." The Aquilonians have 500 scouts, which is an amazing number. The reason for that is that scouts are never counted with the main part of the army. They are always considered somewhat outside of it, so that should they be crushed, it is but a fraction of the army that has been lost. Thing is that we have here a perfect chance to estimate the overall fighting force of the Aquilonian forces, which will be revealed later in the chapter, and trust me, it is considerable. But what Howard is also doing is hinting at what is wrong with Conan. He has Conan perspiring and asking after the legions and knights, which with Pallantides mostly unaware, at least at first, of the true depths of Conan's ills. He stared up at the golden lamp, which shed a soft glow over the velvet hangings and carpets of the great tent. They were alone. Not even a slave or a page slept on a carpeted floor, but Conan's eyes blazed as they were wont to blaze in the teeth of great peril, and the sword quivered in his hand. Pallantides watched him uneasily. Conan seemed to be listening. "Listen," hissed the king. "Did you hear it? A furtive step." "7 knights guard your tent, Your Majesty," said Pallantides. "None could approach it unchallenged." "Not outside," growled Conan. It seemed to sound inside the tent. Pallantides cast a swift, startled look around. The velvet hangings merged with shadows in the corners. But if there had been anyone in the pavilion besides themselves, the general would have seen him. Again he shook his head. "There is no one here, sire. You sleep in the midst of your host." "I have seen death strike a king in the midst of thousands," muttered Conan. "Something that walks on invisible feet and is not seen." "Perhaps you are dreaming, Your Majesty," said Pallantides, somewhat perturbed. "So was I," grunted Conan. "A devilish dream it was, too. I trod again all the long, weary roads. I travel on my way to the kingship." He fell silent, and Pallantides stared at him unspeaking. The king was an enigma to the general, as to most of his civilized subjects. Pallantides knew that Conan had walked many strange roads in his wild, eventful life, and had been many things before a twist of fate set him on the throne of Aquilonia. "I saw again in the battlefield whereon I was born," said Conan, resting his chin moodily on a massive fist. "I saw myself in the panther-skin loincloth, throwing my spear at the mountain beast. I was a mercenary swordsman again, a hetman of the Kozaki, who dwell along the Zaporozhka River, a corsair looting the coasts of Kush, a pirate of the Barakan Isles, a chief of the Himalayan hillmen. All these things I've been, and of all these things I've dreamed. All the shapes that have been I passed like an endless procession. and their feet beat out a dirge in the sounding dust. But throughout my dreams moved strange veiled figures and ghostly shadows, and a faraway voice mocked me, and towards the last I seemed to see myself lying on this dais in my tent, and a shape bent over me, robed and hooded. I lay unable to move, and then the hood fell away, and a moldering skull grinned down at me. Then it was that I awoke. You know what we call that? Glorious, beautiful, silky, and seductively wondrous prose and dialogue. It's a lot of exposition by Conan, the likes of which harkens back to Shakespeare, who had characters tormented throughout the night by wicked apparitions and dreams in the past. He would showcase this sort of dark dream and nightmares as a prelude to some great tragedy or horror. Look at Richard III when characters have nightmares just before something horrible happens. Same thing in King Lear, Hamlet, and most notably, Macbeth. The idea of the dark dreams acting as a prelude to some tragedy is also well known to have happened in the play of Julius Caesar, where Calpurnia, the wife of Caesar, has horrible dreams and visions. This has been the tradition that authors have kept to when writing the story of Caesar since that time. It is something that I really do miss as a literary tradition. It seems to have largely been forgotten in the modern day, and yet it was once a prevailing tradition in most parts of Christendom. It is a very old literary tradition, and one we ought to go back to, as it sets up a very ominous scene, one that we really ought to bring back, as Shakespeare was basing his own writings on even older literary tradition. Even T.H. White in his Once and Future King book relied on this technique a few times. One can even see it present in the ancient classics and even in some films, so why are modern authors so allergic to it? Howard also shows Conan's birth on a battlefield, if in the dialogue form. He shows also the time Conan spent abroad. For more details there, one would have to read all of the various Conan short stories Robert E. Howard wrote before he passed. They're quite magnificent.